But first, let's go around the country to get the latest recruiting intel. We'll hear from national recruiting analysts Mike Roach, Brandon Huffman, and Allen Trieu. Here's Mike to start off our recruiting roundup.
Thank you, Emily. We'll start with five-star Saxy wide receiver Kaliq Lockett. He was at Florida State over the weekend. What was a big trip for the Seminoles? When Kaliq went out to Florida State back in the spring, I think Mike Norvell and his staff did a great job. And what Kaliq called a very surprising visit. He didn't really expect to like Florida State as much as he did, but coming out of that trip, they definitely held a place in his top group. Coming back to Florida State, it had been ups and downs. I think LSU had made a push at one point. Texas A&M had made a push at one point. Texas had been holding strong in that group. But coming out of this trip, I like where Florida State stands. I think they're in, a top two, top three position for him and have a chance to close them coming down the stretch here. What Mike Norvell and his staff do on visits is among the best in the country. And I think what they did with Kaliq Lockett is not only what his fit was on the football field, but I think they made him comfortable with the diversity of their roster, the diversity of the receiver room, and the fact that he would be coming from out of state with a group of kids he really doesn't know. They made him feel like he could fit into that group. And I think that was hugely important for them coming out of this trip. I like where they are. Alabama is next, followed by Texas to end it. Those two visits will happen this week. He'll leave for Alabama today, actually. And then Texas will be on June 21st. And with a decision expected after that, I like those two schools as of right now, Florida State and Texas. I do think Alabama is a wild card. He hasn't been there. He added them late. And so we'll kind of have to see what he thinks coming out of the Alabama trip. On the other end of the spectrum, let's go from wide receiver to offensive line. Five-star Louisville offensive tackle Michael Fasusi just finished his official visit at Oklahoma. And the Sooners, they've been in this race from almost the very beginning. A large part of that is Oklahoma offensive line coach Bill Bedenbaugh, who has done a phenomenal job not only recruiting but developing. He's got a long list of first round, second round, third round draft picks that he can show to prospects and say, hey, this is what will happen when you come here. Missouri, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Oregon and Texas are left for Fasusi, who's got those two trips left, and then we'll also make a decision. I like Oklahoma in this one a little bit. We'll have to see where things go with this Texas visit. I know Texas has been the team tab. They are the team on the 24/7 crystal ball. But I like where Oklahoma is in this group because I think that Bill Bedenbaugh has done a lot to establish that connection from the very beginning. They were one of the earlier schools on Fasusi. They've hosted him on campus numerous times. And I think that if the development piece goes into it, for Fasusi's mind, there's not a better person to develop him than Bill Bedenbaugh in Oklahoma. That's all we've got here. We'll go next to our Pacific Northwest and Brandon Huffman.
Thanks, Mike. Well, it's been a busy weekend out west in the recruiting circle, and it's only going to get busier over the next 7 days as we get closer to the end of the visit period in the month of June. Now, one of those players out west who's going to be busy this week is Kaleb Edwards, the #1 tight end on the West Coast out of Oak Ridge High School in El Dorado Hills. He took an official visit to Auburn last week. He starts his official visit to Alabama on Monday, will take 3 days in Tuscaloosa. Then he'll head to Oregon to wrap up a 6-visit trip. He's previously visited UCLA, Washington, Texas, Auburn, Alabama, and Oregon in those last 2 visits. And then a decision will come for the All-American Bowl tight end selection. Meanwhile, the official visit circuit has wrapped up for San Francisco Archbishop Reardon athlete Chris Lawson. He visited Oregon, Washington, and then this weekend he visited hometown Cal, and now a decision will be coming by the end of this week. Oregon had long been considered the favorite for Lawson, but Washington made a huge impression on him. Kevin Cummings, the receivers coach at Washington, was the first coach to offer him back at Arizona. Meanwhile, Cal is playing up the local angle, the hometown hero with Lawson. Can Oregon keep their big lead that they've had for some time? Did Washington make a nice rally to surpass their rivals to the north? Or did Cal pull off a stunner and keep him in the Bay Area? We will know by the end of this week for Chris. Now for more, let's go to Allen Trieu.
Thanks, Huff. There are several Big Ten schools that I think have a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail right now. One of them being Michigan State, who had several Midwest official visitors coming up this past weekend. Coming out of that, I like the Spartans for several of them, including in-state defensive tackle Derrick Simmons. He's taken several official visits, including Cincinnati last weekend. He has Illinois coming up. And even though the Spartans jumped in a little bit later, I think they're a team that's trending up for him. He said afterwards that they are definitely one of the leaders in his recruitment. They are definitely an in-state program, so proximity factors into this decision. He also had a really, really good official with them over the weekend. This was his first chance to really spend extended time with their staff because he is a somewhat newer offer for them, and he had track and field throughout the spring, so he didn't have a chance to get out on as many unofficial visits as other prospects. So right now I don't have a crystal ball in yet, but I do like where Michigan State sits with him, and I like where the Spartans class is trending. I think by the end of this month, you'll see several more additions to that Michigan State class. Purdue also has some momentum on the recruiting trail, and they had in-state 4-star wide receiver Jonanthany Hall up for his official visit. The Boilers are the second to last in his recruitment. He heads to Indiana next weekend, and then we'll try to come to a decision, he says, before the start of the season, so sometime in July or August. I still have Notre Dame as the team to beat there, but I think Purdue is making a good effort at it. They have been recruiting him for a little bit longer than the Fighting Irish have. He's built a good relationship with their staff, and so I think they're at least in the fight. Right now, I like Notre Dame in that recruitment, but Purdue did their part over the weekend to make it a battle, and now he heads to Indiana, where the Hoosiers will also try to make it a three-way battle. But look for Purdue to also have several more additions in the next few weeks. I think the Boilers have done a great job during their official visit weekends. There's some big fish still in the pond for them, including 4-star edge Jaden Woods, who visited over the weekend. So watch out for Purdue and Michigan State as two Big Ten teams who have a chance to really add to their classes in the coming weeks. Back to you, Blair.
Thanks, Allen. There was not a more important visit out west than the one that happened in Salt Lake City, Utah. Jerome Myles, 5-star wide receiver, a local player from Corner Canyon High School down in Draper, took an official visit to see the Utes. What's prominent about that is, well, he's committed to Ole Miss since April. He had been silently committed to the Utes since the fall, broke that off to head over to the Rebels on an official visit to Oxford. This was an opportunity for the Utes to make a charge and to close the gap, and they did that. He told me he loved everything he saw. He loved the message he heard from the coaching staff, and he got to hang out with his former high school quarterback, Isaac Wilson, who's a true freshman there in Salt Lake City for the Utes and is pushing for playing time as he backs up Cameron Rising. The other thing that was interesting about that is that this isn't going to be the end of the road for Jerome Myles. He's got an official visit scheduled with Texas A&M for this weekend. He will head out to Michigan at the end of July as well. So the Ole Miss Rebels have to hang on here for one of the top playmakers and one of the best pass catchers in the country. It's going to be, I think, a race to the finish line towards that early signing period in December. Moving on to the 2026 class, we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, Bell to Texas being a big one. Well, there's another quarterback in that 26 class that will be hitting the road this weekend on Tuesday. Brady Smigeiel, the 4-star quarterback from Newbury Park, California, will be heading up to Michigan. He will be taking his entire family, and that's not an insignificant detail when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to quarterback dominoes. He's one of the top quarterbacks nationally. He has more than 30 scholarship offers. And he's really high on the Wolverines and what they've been able to do, not only on the recruiting trail, but the pitch that they've made to him, making him feel like a priority. This is going to be a big unofficial visit for him this weekend as he makes it up to Ann Arbor. For the Wolverines, it's huge because it's important to stagger quarterbacks. They had a top 24/7 prospect in the 2024 class in Jaden Davis. They have a 3-star committed right now in 2025. So for them to be able to go out to the state of California and land an elite quarterback, a top 5-1 in Brady Smigeiel, would be huge for Michigan. So that's one visit that I'm keeping an eye on this week.
Man, we have the best team in the biz. Thank you, guys. Check out more of their work at 247sports.com. Crystal balls, analysis, VIP info. 247sports.com is the place for all of that and more.